And here we go. And here we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our broadcast of the Leadership Book of the Month for April 2023. We are going to be talking pretty soon about Indra Nooyi's My Life in Full. And I'm Kelly Byrnes, happy to be here with Bret and Dave. Hey, guys, welcome.
Hey, gang.
And Dave, Bret, no welcome.
Oh, welcome. Hi.
I was pausing there for a quick second. We will all introduce ourselves. And I forgot to count how many we've done now of these, but 16, 17, 18 of these.
And I think it's 19. We started in October. I think I had 19, but don't hold me to it.
All right. And I'm the lead with Voyage Consulting Group, the management consulting firm that focuses on helping leaders lead purpose-driven cultures focused on purpose, principles, and people. And I'm also an adjunct with in the MBA program at Rockhurst University, which is how I know Bret and Dave. So Bret, take it away and introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks, everybody. Glad to speak with everybody this afternoon. So as Kelly pointed out, we came to know each other through the Hellsberg School of Business at Rockhurst when Kelly was actually my professor. So we connected on so many different levels. And Kelly approached me and said, hey, would you have an interest in doing a monthly leadership conversation on books, kind of call it a book club? And I said, sure, what the heck, I'm up for it. So here we are. I was talking to somebody this week that I met casually, and this came up, and he said, well, I told him about the story, and he said, well, you're not just a little bit passionate. If you're 19 books in, you're really passionate. So I'll let history decide that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So Dave obviously came to us, through that connection at Rockhurst. But in my full-time job, I'm a COO of Scavuzzo's, which is a fifth-generation family-owned food service distribution company. And I also do a fair amount of consulting on the side for sourcing and supply chain management. So all of that primarily in the protein space, and all largely focused on food service operators and food service distribution.
Awesome. Yay. And Dave joined us last year. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, everybody. Good to be back. Dave Lingerfelt, educator, mentor, whatever you want to call me today is fine with me. A lot of fun to be a part of this. This is, I'll freely admit, one of those books that it probably was not on the top of my reading list, but Bret and Kelly had both kind of expressed some interest in this one. I said, they haven't steered me wrong yet. So ended up, I was pleasantly surprised by this one. I kind of view books as like relationships. You always learn something. It might be what you don't want to become. It might be what you want to emulate. This was definitely one of those where I learned a lot on the positive side. So a good read, and looking forward to chatting about it with everybody today.
Awesome. And I love our background. We all know each other from Rockhurst, but have different areas of focus, and mine in management and leadership, and Dave in data and analytics, and Bret in operations and protein and manufacturing space and sales and marketing. And still all of us focused on helping leaders. And our purpose is that we talk about helping the leaders of tomorrow invest in themselves today. So we focus our conversations on our pre-games. We talk about what can we talk about in the live conversation that will help leaders develop and learn, and whether we think you should read the book or not. And this one, I think we do think that it's worth reading. We didn't all talk about that together yet, but that's our intention for these, is to inspire you to want to continue developing as leaders yourselves. And so let's see, I'll do the introduction. This book came out in 21, and she was, Indra Nooyi was one of the first CEOs in the Fortune 500. I think she was 10th or 11th, 12th, something like that. She's been a role model of women and men in the leadership space for a long time, and an advocate of women. She became the CEO of PepsiCo in 2006, and held that role until she left there in 2018. And she's continued being a leader since then. And her big thing in Pepsi was coming up with the purpose to, I think it was performance with purpose. and uniting all of their different divisions, and how she went about that, and kind of reinventing the organization. She is an Indian American business executive, and she has a career in Boston Consulting and Booz Allen Hamilton. She also worked as a leader at Motorola and Johnson & Johnson and a few other organizations. She had her undergrad and a master's degree from Madras Christian College in India, and and her master's is from the Indian Institute of Management in Calcutta. And she also came to the U.S. to go to Yale's New School of Management in the early 90s, late 80s, I think it was. So she has her MBA from there. She's consistently ranked on the most powerful women lists, and Time Magazine, Fortune, Forbes, all the impressive lists. These days, she's on the board of Amazon and some other boards. Growing up, she played cricket and she was in a band. I loved that she was in a band, and she has a whole wall of guitars, she described, because she played guitars in a band in school. So we learned about her Hindu faith and about her family and her childhood, and growing up in India, and her family. She's married with 2 daughters, married 30 years, I think, a little bit over 30 years maybe. Mm-hmm. And described all of that. She didn't intend to write an autobiography, but it became sort of that as she was sharing her career journey. And that's one reason I think a lot of our listeners will like it, because people who listen to us or watch our broadcasts are people that will be making career decisions, so men and women. And I really appreciated how she shared how she evaluated those, the different opportunities or career crossroads that she came to, and how her family played a role in that as a woman and as a career-minded professional. So I think that's one of the great lessons or aspects that people would benefit from the book. So Bret, I know you had some ideas about the introduction for the book too. Do you want to chime in?
You want to do some updates, or you want to go right to the book?
Oh yeah, we should do updates. Sure.
You sure? Okay, I didn't want to break your rhythm. You were on.
I know. I already started. I was so excited. I dove right in. I'll repeat everything in a minute.
Dave, you got any updates?
You know, here we are. We're at the end of April. We're rolling into finals. So everyone is exhausted. They're running out of steam. So trying to keep everybody motivated to get through these next couple of weeks. So the nicer weather has definitely helped. In fact, just yesterday, I sitting in my office and I'm hearing some noise out on the quad, and I look out and there's one of my peers actually holding class on the quad. And I thought, wow, what a great idea to try and get your students a little more engaged and wake them up a little bit. So it's been a good semester, but everybody's tired and we're about done. So it's been a good 16 weeks.
Well, I've got it's amazing how the month goes. I mean, I get to putting my prep together here, and I think, I got nothing to share. And then I reflect back on the month, and I could go on for hours here, but I'll be brief. So a couple of months ago, we started talking about posting our podcast. We regularly post our updating reading lists on our website, Kelly's website. And it's amazing how that just kind of morphs into a conversation. But believe it or not, this month, from when we started to now, I bought 5 books. And I know people are saying, really, how do you get 5 books in a month? But it's amazing how many people, when we have conversations, hey, have you read this one? Have you read that one? Mm-hmm. But literally, I mean, that is it's a cornerstone of really how I introduce myself. And but anyway, long story short, I've literally bought 5 books this month. So I will commit to Kelly to getting my podcast written down. The funny part about this whole book conversation is I'm actually having lunch tomorrow with a local Kansas City author. And I like to give Kelly and Dave a little hard time. We're not really considered social influencers, but when we have a local author who's literally asking us to consider pitching his book or covering his book, that tells you that hey, we must be doing something right. So I really appreciate that. But the one thing I think that's important is that as I cover this particular part of the segment, is to say, I don't care if you're picking up paper books, audiobooks, but pick up a book, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny when we get into our conversation on this book, how that theme resonates throughout so much of what Indra Nooyi did as a young child and then early on in her life. So that's that.
Hey, though,
I
before
think
you
the
go on, I was talking about this
yeah,
networking function I was at
yeah.
yesterday, and they ended up giving out books. So they asked, well, we have a basket of books to give out. Has anybody read more than 5 books this year? And several hands went up, of course, including mine. And oh, they were so shocked. Has anybody read more than 6? And a couple of hands went down, but mine, of course, was a, has anybody read more than 7, 8? 10, and then there were 3 of us that had read more than 10, 11, 12, and then they said 15 or something, and then okay, how many? And they asked one of my friends, and she'd read 45 books. And so that was more than me. I think I've read 25 or 30, but that was more than me. Yeah. So she got the basket of books, and a couple of them had been on our had been in our on our roster. So, but she won the basket of books. And so even this networking function with probably 100 people, and they were still talking, they were talking about books.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
My comment on that, we have our comment section or our chat section for this broadcast. I'd love if you've bought a book or you've got a book that you'd like to recommend, drop it in the comments section. I'd love to capture that. I'm always looking for,
Yeah.
I think I'm about 50 deep right now in terms of my what I call on deck list. So I've got plenty to read, but I'm always looking for stuff that people
Yeah,
are passionate
we would love to have recommendations. Share your favorite if you're
about.
listening in, and let us know what you're reading or what your favorite has been. Yeah, that'd be great.
So let's
Anything
pivot
else?
here. I take the Kansas City Business Journal called KCBJ just to kind of keep on with what's going on in the local Kansas City business market, restaurants, who's building apartments, leases, all that kind of stuff. But so last week I'm reading the Kansas City Business Journal, and sure enough, there's an article on the Big Biscuit. And if you're not based in Kansas City, you may not know that one, but the Big Biscuit is a local 24-store chain that primarily focuses on the breakfast and lunch day part. And obviously, me being in the restaurant and food space caught my eye. So the premise of the article, believe it or not, the management within the Big Biscuit does a 20-minute book club. Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about being aligned in terms of personal values. So they interviewed several people within the organization, and the CEO and founder of the company, I think he's a co-founder, actually started this over 10 years ago, and they meet weekly on Thursdays for 20 minutes and go over the book and the titles that they reference, which I'm sure over 10 years they've covered a whole bunch of them. Jocko's Extreme Ownership, Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team were the 2 that they mentioned. And as everybody knows on the call, we did Extreme Ownership a couple of months ago. Here within the company right now, we just finished up 7 Habits. We're working on a book right now called Managing Your Sales Process for our sales team. And then we'll roll into Extreme Ownership right thereafter. But for anybody that's on the call and listening and saying, hey, do I need a little bit of validation that having a book club or, doing a book initiative or reading is the right thing? Step out, be bold, lead from the front. I said, you'll quickly see that there's a whole lot of people out there that are willing to put their words into action by dedicating their time to reading and investing in themselves. They just don't know where to start.
I love it.
Yeah. I get 2 more real quick. So Dave's mentioned a couple different times about people that have reached out to him that are usually between jobs. And, the whole premise of this is networking. And so I had something similar happen to me this month. A gentleman reached out to me, and doing what I do, if you can think of a chain, from the biggest to the big, I want my baby back kind of thing, down to the smallest, I probably sold them. And I mean that very sincerely. So in that time, I've created this great network of people, and they move around the industry. And it's kind of one of those things, probably like data science. Once it gets in your blood, it stays in your blood kind of thing. So this guy calls me, and he had been at a big unit in Chicago. He's now in Louisville. And he said, hey, I'm interviewing for a C-suite level job. So he's moving progressively up the ladder, but I'm just not sure about this company. They're based in New Orleans. You happen to know anybody in New Orleans that you could talk to? I said, give me 5 minutes. So I called 2 of my buddies in New Orleans and said, hey, got this friend, New Orleans. They both knew the company. One of the guys was buying from them. And we went through everything, landmines, pitfalls, pluses and minuses about the company. And I called my buddy back and I said, hey, sounds like a good opportunity, C-suite level deal. But, this is some of the things that I found out that he wasn't aware of. So much like Dave's stories that he shared about the value of networking and being there when somebody needs you, why I lived it this month. And I thought, kudos for this guy and I even gave him tons of compliments. I said, hey, you called me asking for something, and there will be a time. I don't know when it will be, but there will be a time when he can return the favor. So kudos on that. So last month I shared my commitment to lead to read KC which is this initiative working with basic elementary school folks. And I've carried through, and I've devoted 30 minutes each of the last few weeks to reading with the first or second grader at Whittier Elementary in Kansas City, Kansas. And it kind of takes me right back into my parent mode. You know, you start pointing out punctuation and spelling and things like that. And I keep a stash of KU bookmarkers here in my office. And I brought one into the young man and handed it to him, and big old smile. And I think it cost me 40 or 45 cents. The cool thing about this, and there's a point here, so that the KCK Police Department has volunteered to the initiative as well. And so these guys come in with their bulletproof vests, their badges, and their guns. And I'm sure they go home and tell their mom and dad, hey, I read with a guy with a gun today, and I was giving the police officers a hard time. I said, yeah, I don't really stand a chance of being the cool guy when there's a police.
You gave them a bookmark.
Yeah, exactly. These guys got guns and bullets, but you know, kudos for the Kansas City Police Department for volunteering their time. So, yeah, the other part here, I'm certainly no Indra Nooyi. There's no question about it. But you know, really shared a lot with her in terms of being a parent of two girls. Kelly and Dave and I were talking in the pregame about, you know, how we handle young ladies in the workforce right now and really have that common. And Kelly always asks, is this the one that you'd recommend? And I said, it depends, right? It's not a heavy book as far as strategy goes. I mean, if you're looking for that type of a book, this is not it. But I felt that there were messages weaved throughout the book that applied for just about everybody, depending on what station of life you were in, whether you're a parent, whether you're a college age student, whether you're a young manager, a C-suite level exec, or even if you're retired. So it is a book, in my opinion, that's got a message for everybody. And you just have to really kind of ferret that out of there. Just know that even though she's a very successful strategist, and that's how she started, is in strategy, this is not a strategy book.
Yeah. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yep.
Yeah, again, I thought it was a great read. It was absolutely not what I expected. When I think about reading like a biography, it probably would not have been, I guarantee it would not have been my first choice. Very, very glad I read it. You know, for me, some of the things that really opened my eyes up to was some of that micro level stuff that I just would have never thought of. You know, and the example that keeps, you know, ringing in my head is when she talked about she'd made it up to CEO, and they had this big entrance into the executive building that was cobblestone. And she had talked about how, you know, her and countless other women in heels had, you know, almost twisted ankles, darn near fallen. And, you know, that's just something that someone like me is not going to think about. And I think it just kind of, you know, to me, it got my attention of, you know, no matter how hard I try, there's going to be some things that I'm just simply not going to see and have vision to. So what's my next best option? I need people on my team that have vision to those sort of things. Mm-hmm. So again, not that I was not sensitive to that sort of thing. Something I wouldn't have thought about. So little things like that throughout the book went, wow, okay, that I did not see coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a great read for a variety of reasons. And Bret, like you said, for anybody, I thought we were talking in the pregame about, I think men would benefit from reading this. And even you might not think so because it's by a woman about her life. So you might not think you have a lot in common with her, but I think her starting in consulting and coming up that way, that does mirror a lot of the journeys that a lot of men have that come in consulting or come right out of school. And then her decision about family, you know, I think men can relate to a lot of that as well. But I think this men would benefit from it as far as learning about more about the struggles that women face in the agony of, am I a good mom? And just she agonized over that periodically throughout her career as she was promoted and moved around, and her husband was so supportive, but she still had those pangs. And so I think just understanding of that, I think would be insightful. And then some of the other things that she talked about from the women's perspective. And I appreciated that she wasn't defensive as a woman or negative or, you know, it just was the journey, and I could relate a lot to her journey. I was the next one down from her, the next group coming up right after her. And so, you know, I was in a lot of the same type of situations that she was in, and you know, could really appreciate what she went through. I was the only woman in a lot of meetings early in my career, and could appreciate all of that. So I think women could benefit from it. early stage career, late stage women and men. So I hope everybody will read it. So, okay. Did you have anything else, Dave, for introductory? I mean, Bret, for introductory, or should we go?
Nope, let's go to it.
Okay. So I thought for this one, we would all just take turns sharing, being mindful of time, but sharing some key leadership lessons. So what are some leadership lessons that we take out of this that we think would be beneficial to share with folks? So Dave, do you want to kick us off with one?
Yeah, the one that just really rocked my world, where I went, wow, that's really, really good, was she talked about how when she had made it up to CEO, that she took the time to write a letter to all of her senior leadership about how good they were doing, but didn't send it to them, sent it to their parents. And, so if I had to guess that, these are people that are probably mid-career, maybe even late career individuals, that she took the time and effort to find out how to get these letters to her people's parents and share that. And I had a leader tell me, a guy I consider a mentor, tell me years ago, he said, if you want to show your people appreciation for their hard work, he said, the handwritten thank you note, which I said, yeah, I got all that. He said, but no, send it to their house. He said that way, their family gets to see it as well. And that's a really big deal. So I've always been a huge proponent of the handwritten thank you note, even though I have atrocious handwriting. I'm an IT guy. I try to type everything I do because my handwriting is horrible. But I still try and do that handwritten note. And over the years, I've read a lot about other leaders, specifically a lot of presidents. I've read various writings on Eisenhower, Kennedy, Reagan, H.W. Bush, Clinton, and all of them devoted a very significant part of their day every day towards writing letters to people, be it thank you notes or, that's, these are people that are far busier than I'll ever be in my life. And yet they still take that time to do that. So the fact that Indra Nooyi took this time to do that, I was like, wow, that really elevates it up a level. I found myself just even yesterday, Administrative Professionals Day, I went into class, beforehand and I told my students, I try to impart this wisdom to them that goes beyond the textbook, right? How to be successful in business. And I walked in and I held up, cards for Administrative Professionals Day. And I said, okay, this is a day you need to have on your calendar. These people that serve as administrative assistants or, whatever their exact title is, they make the world go round. And these are people that you want to know, that you want them to know you're grateful for what they do. I said, so, take the time, buy the card, write the handwritten message in it, deliver it, let them know that you care and you appreciate it. So again, Indra really, really reinforced that. I thought it was really, really clever what she did.
And she mentioned specifically her administrative professionals that she had, and she relied on them. Many of them stayed with her for years, and she spoke very highly of them.
Yep.
She says in her book that she wrote hundreds of those notes to thank the mothers and fathers for the gift of their child at PepsiCo.
Yep.
And she said almost everyone wrote her back.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's how meaningful the letter was to the parents, that they all wrote her back. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. Bret, what's a leadership lesson?
Well, I grouped everything into themes is kind of where I went. So I think I'll touch on most of them. The first one I really, and I had all kinds of notes plotting and I grouped it all together. So the thing that first I wanted to start with was the family. And as I found this theme, we won't debate here nature versus nurture, but she was clearly, and she emphasized it throughout all of the book, how she kept going back to family so many different times and the role that the family played in her life, her family, as well as the family that she came from. So, her family challenged her all the time to continually stretch. She made mention about her grandfather being a judge and she would perform as a young child in front of her family. And he commented, hey, that's okay. And I kept thinking of, this day where everybody gets a participation trophy and that type of thing. And that clearly wasn't the environment that she grew up in, right? Her best was not good enough in her household. And I think that made an indelible mark on her. her grandfather asked her to read the newspaper to him at a young age, and she commented in the book that I'm pretty sure he had read it, but wanted to reinforce her ability to read and kept her current on current events. So I'm grouping the relationship with her husband Raj under this title of family because that's kind of where it fit. But she recounts numerous times the value of the relationship and how much of an ardent supporter he was of her and the role that he played in raising their kids, the sacrifices that he made. And with childcare or any of that following, he moved as she kind of climbed the corporate ladder. So, for parents that on the call or that are listening today, consider the household environment you're creating for your children. It's important for you and it's important for them, and how you're setting expectations, how you're setting those boundaries. Nooyi's family in India they didn't really say, she kept saying middle class, but they had house servants and they had people that were gardeners. And I think they were probably a little more than middle class is kind of the impression that I got. But what they did for her is they imparted a tremendous, underscore boldprint, a tremendous work ethic, and they challenged her to give her very best. So secondly, and this is the other takeaway here, is to make sure that you choose your partner extremely carefully. And as I was reading this, I kept being reminded of the case study in Kelly's class, the SCM, where a young mid-level manager was faced with an opportunity for a promotion that was going to require that his family be uprooted and they move. And he knew that if he took the position, it was going to require more time of him and more travel and time away from the family. And I think the way the case breaks out is, how would you play that out? These are conversations for the young people on the call, college age, junior level managers. You want to have those conversations early in your career with your partner. Those aren't the conversations you want to have after you've exchanged your vows, where your aspirations are not aligned with those of your partner. And in her case, obviously, her husband, Raj, was an extremely well-educated, very highly motivated professional and extremely well accomplished. So, you had two, call them alpha males for lack of a better term, that were, very closely aligned, but they shared a common vision of what they wanted to accomplish. And my only point there is, we've all been down the path. And in my line of work, being a traveling salesman for many years, I can't tell you how many circuits or trade shows I would go, and more than half of the people there that I interacted with were all divorced, and obviously they did not have those conversations early on. So my takeaway there is, all plans are wrong. Some are better than others, but have a plan, communicate, share your vision, share your goals with your partner and your family, because if you don't, you will pay the price.
And the goals needed to include the financials and be very clear about those. They were clear about sending $100 to each of their families back in India.
They were.
And then one of her jobs, she was at the end, her mentor had left, and the new person that came in, remember, that person didn't have the same kind of priorities or values or whatever. They weren't terrible, but just not the same focus. And
their styles clashed.
Yeah. And so she wasn't happy there, and she got invited to go join a different company, or she was ready to quit, and her husband supported her in that, even though it was going to be a move. And she was a little bit surprised, and he said, "I want you to be happy, and I can tell you're not happy. And so you want your partner to be someone that cares if you're happy, and recognizes that, and will make that a priority, and have conversations about that."
Well, and granted, I mean, she wrote the book, but the impression you got, and obviously she gets to cloak the presentation of how she wants her and her husband to be perceived, but you can't help but see that they were completely aligned and very much in lockstep from day one.
But she did say that they had arguments too. She didn't go into a lot of details about those, but there were a couple places where she referred to, like, I don't think they were like holding hands, singing Kumbaya every minute of every day.
I always look at it from the standpoint, what do we want people to do after they listen to the conversation here, right?
Yeah.
And it's, think about this, have a thought, have a plan, have those difficult conversations, and make sure you choose your partner wisely.
Yeah. Be intentional about that. Let me see if there was
What's your first one, Kelly?
I would say, kind of along the line of that, before you can choose your partner, is having a clear purpose. So knowing what you want in your life and having a vision for what you want your life to be. And then for her, that tied into her roles. She always needed to know how she was able to contribute, and where she felt that she wasn't able to contribute is when she wasn't happy in her roles, and that's when she was moving on. And she was very successful at Pepsi because she came up with that purpose and was able to come up with a new strategy because she came up with that and got everybody aligned. But I think that comes down to who you are as a person and understanding your purpose and what you want your life to be. So that was something she kept true to her values, even though she questioned them sometimes, like motherhood and family. And she kept coming back to that every time, to her values. So that was my first one. That was the most important. I guess kind of along that was being authentic. And she talked about in the early days at Yale and interviewing, and she didn't have a lot of money and she was on scholarship, and she took her $50 and went to the store and bought a suit. She had never tried on clothes in a fitting room before. And so she couldn't imagine taking her clothes off and trying on with a little curtain there. And so she just held them up and thought they were good. And then the day of the interview, she tries on the pants and they were too short, but she didn't have good shoes. So she describes looking so ridiculous, and interviewed and ended up getting the job. But her friend told her, or advisor told her, yeah, that does not look good, and told her next time to wear a sari, that's what she was most comfortable in, and you need to be yourself. And she talked a lot about being authentic. It's okay to blend in. She learned sports to blend in. That's what people talk about. Learn sports to blend in, but be true to who you are. Dave, I saw your head nodding with all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So yeah, she, and I couldn't believe how detailed the book got there. We're talking about even like, I think it was like the fashion rep at Saks Fifth Avenue reached out to her, and again, the things
that was when she was CEO.
Yeah. The things we don't think about. She talked about being criticized, and I think at a magazine, because she had wore a ball gown to an event that she wore a year or two prior. And they said, you can't do that. And she made the comment of, how many men at this event are wearing the same tuxedo they have worn for the last 10 years? And I'm going,
exactly.
Yeah, I look in my closet. There is one tuxedo and about 8 suits, and some of those I've had for a very long time. So yeah, there's those differences that as a guy, that's not first of mind to me, until it gets brought up in this situation. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So.
Yeah. Bret, what's your second one?
I grouped a whole lot of things under education. So she wrote extensively about education and the role it played in her life at an early age. And then, and Kelly kind of recounted this in the lead-in, but she had an undergraduate school degree in India, a graduate school in India, and then went on to Yale, and in what they called the Yale School of Management, which from what I could read in text, she was the inaugural class, I think is what it was. So she got not only one degree, but then got an MBA on top of it. So she quoted her grandfather, and I wrote this down. I said, even though I'm in my 80s, I'm a student like you. The day I stop, my mind will atrophy and the body will soon follow. And I try to really live that every day. And when I read that, it just kind of hit me right in the gut. So she joined Motorola, which was obviously just part of her career path, but she joined Motorola. She didn't know anything about cars and electronics. And again, she readily admitted, hey, I didn't know anything. So she recruited 2 local community college professors to teach her Motorola or manufacturing and electronics at the night, So case in point, everybody knows that I joined a food service distribution company about 6 months ago, and I knew a little bit about the company, but not to the degree that I did. And I had to dig in and learn. And I've told everybody in the company for the last 6 months, the training wheels are about to come off. So I've spent the last 6 months literally asking the very, very simple questions. And it's funny. People have been here that are a lot younger than me, a lot junior than me, have a much different title on the org chart that know a whole lot more than I do. So I make the comment all the time that I'm going to learn from you rather than you learn from me, at least for a period of time. So the quote that I like to think of is, books, umbrellas, and minds work best when they're open. So be open-minded is that. Yeah. The last aspect of education, we're forever focused on our alma maters. And my point to that is choose wisely, right? I will definitely be associated with Rockhurst in some form or fashion, probably for the rest of my life. And working in Kansas City proper, I can't tell you how many people are so proud to have been through the Rockhurst EMBA program. Mm-hmm. I went through the more of the what they call the non-traditional program at night, rather than being a full-time graduate student or being in the EMBA program. But again, so many companies in Kansas City have sent their executives through that EMBA program. And it's like a badge of honor. They are so proud of that. So,
Mhm.
even after Indra Nooyi retired from Pepsi, she still stayed very well connected. And I think they called it Yale Corporation or Yale Company, something. And I'm sure it's their endowment that she's involved in now. But my point in all of that is just to say, hey, choose your college wisely. It becomes kind of part of who you are. It becomes part of your DNA. It's on your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile. But that's a badge and a title and a moniker that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. And I say proudly carry with you for the rest of the life. So make that choice wisely.
And keep in touch with people from there. She's still in touch with those people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, she sought their advice and counsel throughout her career, and tying in with the learning, continuous learning. She also sought out other experts. So in the book, she talked about meeting with Hillary Clinton about something and having other women CEOs over to her home. She met with Steve Jobs. That came up random to me in the book. Like all of a sudden she's at his house meeting with him. She kept in touch with her professors. Hey, so she kept in touch with her professors, people. And the executive MBA, and I'm involved in that program at Rockhurst as well as one of the executive coaches. And she kept in touch with all those people and able to rely on them throughout her career, and then she helps them as well. So I loved all that. Dave, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree that just the emphasis on that, put a great deal into networking. And it kind of ties into my other point that I really took away from this. And if I put it in one word, it's presence. In the book, she talked extensively about all the travel she did to go to this bottling factory and to go overseas here and to go there, which of course was a huge hardship in terms of spending a lot of time away from her kids and her husband. But one thing that I've always been fundamental about is early on in my career, I led teams at 2 different physical locations, and I was always irritated by management that would only show up when there was a problem. So I was very deliberate about splitting my time evenly between both campuses. And I remember at one point my senior leader said, "Why do you spend so much time there? Are they not performing well?" I said, "They're performing great." And I said, "I want them to know that I'm behind them." So I split my time 50-50. And he said, "Well, that seems like a huge waste." And I said, "Well, it really is all about presence." And even with all of the technology that's out there today, being able to use Zoom and phone calls and FaceTime and all that stuff, it's great. I lean on it all the time, but your people need to see you, and they need to physically see you. And she truly embodied that even before technology was on her side. And if you're the leader that only shows up when there's a problem, and we've all been there, right? It's like the boss walks around the corner. It's like, "What are you doing here? You only show up when there's a problem." It makes you uneasy as an individual contributor or even as a team player. So yeah, her presence, I thought was huge. And she even talked about how when, she made her way up, to the, I think it was president level, how she had the corporate jet at her disposal and how it was so much more efficient. I thought, oh yeah, we would all like a corporate jet.
But she talked about flying over to a team, I want to say it was in Russia, to meet with a team that was going to be presenting to her the week after. But she went over to help them get ready to present to her, and how much they appreciated that. And that's good use of that plane, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So we probably have time for one more, Bret. Do you want to share your last theme?
Let's see here. Which one's going to be my best? I got a couple here. I'll bundle these 2 together. So, I grouped a whole bunch of things under jobs, right? And I said, choose your employers carefully. So her first job, she interned at Booz Allen, which Kelly mentioned, and then she went on to a position at BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, and she detailed the interview process there. And it closely paralleled with what Lingo's daughter went through with Deloitte, and that she interviewed with all the big firms, and she got offers from all of them, but the offer from Deloitte, a lot like BCG, was the last one that she got. So, find that company that you want, zero in on it, target, put in the work, put in the energy, put in the effort that you need to get the job you want. And obviously, BCG being the preeminent strategy consulting company in the industry or in that category, she learned a tremendous amount from that. she talked a little bit about, her first job selling textiles. Not a very glamorous job, obviously, but it's a stepping stone. And my takeaway from that is to the folks out there is you got to start someplace, right? I would say you got to get a line in the water. It may not be the most glamorous job, but just know that every job has value in the learning experience. She went through the importance of managing a P&L. And for anybody that's on the call that's got aspirations of the C-suite, right? And you go out and do an interview and you ultimately have that P&L responsibility, that separates kind of the haves from the have-nots. And having been down that path and interviewed for CEO level jobs, until you've got that P&L experience, it kind of separates you from the crowd, not in a good way. So if that's in your track, that's in your career, that's in your goal plan, make sure you focus on that. We talked a lot about personal values. I'll skip over that. She made a couple different points, which are strategic. They were quick, but metrics matter. She talked a lot about the Pepsi restaurant tour where they did store after store after store check. She talked a lot about, and I love this. I'd never heard this before. Focus on the right side of the decimal was the term she used. And the point that she was making is the numbers that are on the right side of the decimal, which are just the pennies, they do matter. She had a mentor, I don't remember who it was, but he was very focused, very frugal to the point that he wouldn't use the corporate jet. But the point there was focus on the items on the right side of the decimal as well. And then she talked a little bit about her pay not being adjusted when she moved up the company ladder. And there's two schools of thought there, particularly right now with this younger generation where there's not as many pensions and things like that are available. Every job has value, and it may not always be in that paycheck, right? Are you learning? Are you inspired? Are you bringing value? I would tell everybody to focus on the job, focus on the value that you can bring, and more often than not, the pay will follow. Doesn't always work out that way, but you're probably getting more out of that particular job than just the paycheck. So just
although she did bring up that she was so surprised that HR just skated over the pay disparity, and she brought up how she still sees that, and was so surprised how that was the case, and she never asked about it, and they didn't bring it up, and her job changed. Even was it when she became CFO and had all these different areas reporting to her, that they weren't gonna, was it that one or the one before, that they weren't even going to change anything?
Right. So last one I've got here is, the business happens outside the corporate walls, and that's just kind of been a theme that I've been on here lately. And she recounts how, as a CEO, I think she's president of Pepsi, she's literally in Stop and Shop looking at all their bags of product and looking at their cases of soda. And she's really experiencing their product and where their consumer interacts with the brand. And she could have easily assigned that to a junior strategist or a category manager, somebody go out and do that for her. But the report and the data and the interaction wouldn't have been as valuable. So let me illustrate this. So I'm the CEO of the company, and the CEO is the family member. And so he's down in Austin, Texas, where we have trucks that deliver to restaurants. Gets up at he must have got up at 3 because he met the truck at the store at 4:15 in the morning, and literally sees how the truck arrives, sees how the driver unloads the truck, sees how the product rode from Kansas City down to Austin, Texas on the truck, and takes pictures and videos and illustrates that, and then is able to bring that back to the team here in Kansas City and really kind of show them the product of their work. And those folks they're junior in the organization. Some are younger, some are older, but they're kind of our first layer, our first team there. But you could have seen the glow on their face when they saw, hey, I loaded that truck and that product rode all the way from Kansas City to Austin, Texas. We were also able to take that information and those videos and share that with the ownership of the restaurant group. They're based here in Kansas City. Their stores are in Austin, Texas. So the point I make, and this is so important, there are a few jobs that happen inside the office, behind a computer. But for the majority of us, our jobs happen out there with customers, with vendors, with suppliers, with the community, with the government, with the neighborhood. Get out from behind your desk, get out from behind your computer screen, and go interact with the people that can really make a difference in you delivering your objectives. There's only so much that can be done behind a phone and behind a computer screen, and get out in the world where it happens, just like Indra Nooyi did by going to Stop and Shop.
I love that. And even if you're the second degree of separation from all of that, to go out there and see it, and you'll appreciate even more, and be able to see the impact of what you do if you're out among that. Yeah, fantastic. Dave, I want to close with one that you and I talked about the other day in the first pregame about when Indra Nooyi became the president of Pepsi, and she gets home that night after the announcement is made, and she pulls into her mother was taking care of her kids, and she gets home and she comes in and her mom says, "You need to go to the store to get milk." Her husband was out of town. And she says, but I have an announcement. I was made president of Pepsi. And she goes, "Well, we need to get milk. Go to the store to get milk." And then she gets back later and she tells her mom, "I'm kind of bummed you didn't really, praise me for that or give me any celebration." And her mother told her, "Leave your crown in the garage. When you come home here, you're the mom, and we'll celebrate that another time." But
yep.
Yeah, wasn't that the phrase? Leave your crown in the garage.
That's the quote. You're on.
She said, "You're first. You're a mother. You're a wife, and you're a daughter. So leave your crown in the garage."
Yeah. I thought that was great, and she describes it further about the humility and the power and the balance of those things, and I think that's a good lesson for leaders out there, that not to have that crown be all that you wear all the time, or expect others to see that, or treat you differently, family or not. And it's really about the service. And that's what she was all about, was really the service and her contributions to people. So I think that was really what she's about. And that's her life in full. And I think she has a fulfilling life, and I think she's not quite done. She's still doing cool things. So yeah. Okay. Any last comments about this one?
Well, I think it just, it really kind of speaks to, how hard this struggle is. She is, hands down one of the biggest advocates for women, minorities in leadership, right? She told story after story about how she faced challenges, adversity, and all of that to rise to the top, right? CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And I fully believe worked very hard to advance other women, other minorities in the organization. But ultimately, what happened when she left PepsiCo, who they appointed after her, she was very instrumental in picking that person. It was another man. And, she talked about that we just didn't have, female minority that really rose to the top. And I think so many of us in business, I know when I used to screen applicants, I told HR, send me the resumes without names on them, number them, because that way I don't want any chance of any bias coming in there. So I think so many of us, we do work hard at this, but we also are faced with what the universe gives us, right? Me coming from a very technical background, computer science. If I looked around at the ethnic and gender makeup of, my graduating class, it was me. It was white males. So yeah, do we want to hire minorities? You betcha. Do we want to hire more females? You betcha. We got to get them in the pipeline. And sometimes there's just nothing in the pipeline, and we all, owe something to make that happen. But she faced it as well. Here, she's one of the biggest advocates for this, and she couldn't even get it done. So it's hard, but that's not a reason to not keep fighting.
Yeah, and to expand how you fill your pipeline.
Yep.
Yeah, right on. Bret, how about you? Final comments?
Yeah, she did this, and I grabbed this out of her final page. This is a quote. She said, "Finally, think hard about time." She said, "We have so little of it on earth. Make the most of your days and make space for loved ones who matter most. Take it from me, Nooyi. I've been blessed with an amazing career, but if I'm being honest, there have been moments when I wish I'd spent more time with my children and family. So I encourage you, be mindful of your choices on the road ahead," end quote. So, some of us have experienced some similar things. And my point of all this is what she did and what she accomplished comes at a price. There's a cost. And, I think I've shared with the team here, I log about 65 hours a week on average, and some weeks it's a little more, some weeks a little less. And that's just not for everybody. So just know that if that's where your goals and that's where your plans take you, they will come at a cost. There will be trade-offs. And so, when my kids were young, I missed my fair share of events and ball games, parent-teacher conferences, all those kind of things. And as I was prepping for the call, I engaged with my 24-year-old daughter, kind of where I was at with it. And she said, Dad, there's a quote. She said, Dad, I don't really remember you missing anything. For some reason, I only remember the events that you were at. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I still have a great relationship with both my daughters. I have the same woman that I married 25 years ago. And not everybody can say that they were so fortunate. So just know these things will come at a cost, and we could all end up like Indra and Raj, or obviously the alternative, but it will come at a price.
Yeah,
that's really nice. My final quote is from early in the book. I think the fundamental role of a leader is to look for ways to shape the decades ahead, not just to react to the present, and to help others accept the discomfort of disruptions to the status quo. With a can-do sense of optimism and a must-do sense of responsibility, we can transform our society. And I think it takes great leaders to do it. So thank you both for joining me for this one today. And we need to get our heads together for the May book. So we'll get back to everybody about that one, about the next one. But we will meet here, same bat channel, same bat time, May 25th. And so we will see you then. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us.